Thanks for being here. So close to cocktail hour. Very excited about that, but appreciate you guys coming and listening to Connor and I chat about AI agent and implementation. So yeah, I'm Nicole. I lead the implementation team here at Gorgias.
Connor, also leading an implementation team. I happen to focus a little bit more on the shopping assistant convert side of things. So if you have a special focus on driving revenue, that's kind of where I play. But yeah, again, want to reiterate, like Nicole, we're very grateful you guys are all here. We know it's been a long day. We know we're the last thing in between you and a cocktail. So we're going to try to make this a valuable session, a relatively quick session, hopefully engaging as well, and appreciate everybody's attention. So before getting into it, just wanted to pulse check the room. How many people are currently using AI in their customer service setup? Okay, so we have
Right
a lot
on.
of people here who have a starting point, right? So what are we actually going to talk about today? Humanizing your AI onboarding, maximizing impact of AI agent. Sounds a little bit like word soup, a little bit of buzzword soup. We understand that. What we're really trying to get towards is a framework through which you can set up the AI agent that's going to drive success, because ultimately, once you set up AI agent, it's kind of set and forget. You need to nail that part of it. And really what we've seen day in and day out as implementation managers is people come in and they're saying, you know, I'm not a engineer, I'm a people leader. I'm a customer experience manager. I'm not a technical, AI person that does this every day. How am I going to make sure I know how to nail this? And truthfully, the best lens we can share with you is treat it as if you had just made a new hire and set them up in the phases that you would go through with any normal human being. They are essentially an extension and new member of your team. And we'll touch a lot more on what that actually means in detail here. So with any new hire, phase one is going to be the onboarding phase. Essentially what we're trying to do here is just give enough foundational knowledge to the point where we feel comfortable getting that person into the queue. They're not going to be perfect right away. We know that. We just want to make sure they have enough information that they can launch with. And from there, we'll move into the coaching phase.
Yes, so phase two is coaching. So once they're in the queue, you're reviewing how they're performing. You want to give them consistent and actionable feedback. You want to help them get better. When everyone, like a human, makes mistakes, so will AI agent. So with feedback and regular coaching, we're going to improve them to the next phase, which is
maximizing impact, which to be fair is not quite an onboarding phase. This is really like after we're comfortable, we think that this agent is launched, it's established itself as a top performer on the team. If you are a manager and you have a newly established top performer, what are you going to try to do with that person? You're going to look for ways to maximize the impact, expand the scope, get them across more areas of your business, put that person who's shown himself to be a top performer to work. And we're going to talk about how you can apply that to the AI world as well, specifically with Shopping Assistant and with AI Support Agent here. So phase one, the onboarding phase. Again, we're just laying the groundwork. Before it can answer tickets, it needs some information. What is that information? We'll touch on that in a second. First of all, I want to level set where we're starting. I think in my experience, people are coming to calls forgetting that you've hired an agent that has prerequisite skills in place already. You do not need to teach it how to be a customer service rep. You're not teaching it how to be a salesperson. You're hiring it understanding that it already has those skills in place. And really, you're just trying to make sure it knows how to excel at your company and has that context that it's going to need. So I see people saying things like, make sure you're empathetic if someone is complaining about a damaged item. It's going to know that. It's a customer service rep that has those skills. It's not a good use of your time to try to program those things in. On the shopping assistant side, telling it to do things like handle objections tactfully, ask discovery questions. These are things that are preset. We can move on and really start focusing on what is the context that this agent is going to need to excel with the types of customers I deal with and the types of questions I have. And we're going to talk about what those pieces of information look like in the next slide here.
okay, so what resources does any new team member need? They need product knowledge. So you need to teach them everything about your product, whether that's what materials it's made out of, ingredients, sizing information, or even common issues that come up in support from your product. You want to let them, or you want to teach them to be a product expert. The next thing is that you want to let them know your common questions. So what usually comes up in the support queue, and you want to give them the answers to all of those common questions. And then you need to teach them your brand guidelines. So tone of voice for your brand. What do you want your frontline agents to sound like? Do you want them to use emojis, exclamation marks? Do you want them to be more professional or serious? You want to tell the agent how you want them to represent your brand in specific scenarios. And then lastly, there's your policies and processes. So these are like escalations, return policies, warranty issues, anything like an upset customer or refund. So that's like the next and last thing out of these 4 pillars are your product knowledge, FAQs, brand guidelines, and your policies.
Yep, exactly right. So AI agent, like when we translate this into the actual application, this takes the form of help center articles for knowledge. You're looking at things like your websites that we all integrate with. We can scrape the Shopify catalogs. Not all of this is stuff that you need to program. So when you're thinking about, I'm about ready to launch, or I want to deepen its capabilities and what it's able to take on for my business, understand that a lot of this is automatically processed. So while it's helpful to be up to date with your product catalog details, we are scraping for this. We understand your inventory. We can look at the images. That's actually a new capability. So a lot of you in the room have set up previously. We now are able to look directly at the website at the Shopify catalog and know, even if there's no description, what that product is through image recognition. And so what this is going to do is make its answers a lot more robust, requiring a lot less work from you on keeping those descriptions up to date, adding things to the Help Center articles. It truly is coming ready-made with some good information from the scratch. That being said, of course you can customize it. As part of any good training, you want to add color, you want to add nuance. Maybe you happen to know that people absolutely love the San Diego corduroy hat, and so not much more needs to be said about the details. It's corduroy, it's San Diego, but if you want to put in some guidance that says this is a top seller, when people are looking for hats that are going to be cool for a college kid, for a post-grad, for anybody who lives on the coast in California, you can make sure that you're giving that extra context in there and make sure that it's respected. We also want to make sure tone of voice is front and center of the setup. So loading up information like product details, like FAQs, PDPs, blog pages, that's not really going to tell us how we need to be behaving in conversations. That's something that you can add in later and layer in. So we're not just answering questions correctly, we're answering it in the way that your human agents would. So we're being reflective of your brand here as well. Shopping Assistant, we'll touch on some of those kind of more nuanced options in a bit here.
And now we're going to go through some practical tips on where to get started for onboarding. So one of my top tips are, next slide. I would say use stats to your advantage. Take a look at your top used macros. So what are your human agents answering over and over again? We can get AI agent to answer those questions instead. You can also look at your most viewed Help Center articles. So those are the questions that your customers are coming to your website to get answered. Let's have AI agent handle those as well. And then I always say start simple. So you can also look at the one-touch tickets that your agents handle. Those are the perfect scenarios for AI agent. It's just one answer, easy to automate, and an easy way to ease in that agent. And then lastly, if you're nervous about launching an AI agent, you can easily utilize ticket tagging and views to monitor the performance post-launch. So you can have AI agent tag specific intents, have a view to filter those filter those tickets specifically so that you can easily dig in and do QA every day, which leads us to the next phase, which is coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably the most important phase. Like when we're getting started, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much we can improve before we get it in the queue. And again, like bringing this back to the whole theme we're talking about, that's no different than somebody's first week in training. You're just trying to make sure, yes, I've gone through the handbook. I've taught you everything I can about our best sellers. At this point, we just need to let you start taking on tickets and make sure we're setting aside time to coach, listen in on some calls if that's something that you're recording, review the ticket transcripts, and just give on-the-fly feedback. This is the meat of the onboarding phase here. So why would we coach? What are we actually trying to drive? What kind of outcomes are we looking for? We're looking to make it more accurate. So when it's answering questions, it should be good off the bat. It's not going to misquote anything from your knowledge base, but maybe there's some nuance that we're missing. We can add some more color. Yes, this is our refund policy, but why are you asking? Are you on the fence with a certain product you might be looking to buy? We can extend that conversation by coaching on, hey, that's an opportunity. You just answered the question and let that opportunity slip by. Complexity of resolutions as well. So as we're going on, we're probably starting a little bit simple. As we get comfortable, we've proven that it can take on refund policy questions. Now maybe we start adding in some actions. We add layers into what it's able to take on. By doing all of this, we're freeing up your team. So the better and more efficient AI agent is, the more time your team has as well. So everybody is being kind of disencumbered by having this extra team member that's ramping up. And then I would argue, most importantly, the shoppers are benefiting as well. The more we're coaching, the better it's getting at answering questions, the smoother that shopper experience is going to be. And ultimately, that's what we all care about here. That's what we're trying to drive through having an agent like this. So where to start? When you're looking at what tickets should I review, where do I want to start coaching, I would say the best place to start is going to be on the tickets that AI agent could not handle. This is the biggest opportunity. So ones that are currently being passed off to another member of the team. There's really two reasons this could happen. So one is AI agent did not have enough information to answer the question. Number two would be you've actually told it specifically, hey, this is early. If you see this is a complicated topic. For now, just hand it over to a member of our team and we'll deal with it. So that is another way that we could have a handover.
So if AI agent wasn't certain on the right information, you want to, of course, point it to the right information. And the way I think of this is we're all CX leaders or support leaders. When I used to hire someone new on the team, I would say, before you answer this ticket, actually write it as an internal note, and we'll have an agent who's been around for a while review it and then press go and say, okay, that's a great answer, send it. You can think of it this same scenario with this, where you're looking at a ticket where the AI agent didn't actually send the response because it wasn't confident. And you can say, hey, we actually have a help center article or a guidance that has the information that you need to answer this correctly. I'm just gonna let you know that this is actually the right knowledge. You do have the answer. I'm just gonna give you a thumbs up and say, you got this, go ahead and send it. So this is actually pointing the agent to the right information that's available. They just couldn't find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we err on the side of caution there. We want to make sure we're getting everything right. And so if we're even a little bit uncertain, we probably will withhold and hand it over. But you can kind of build that confidence with the new AI and say, nope, you had it exactly right. Reaffirm that this is totally good to go for next time.
And then another scenario is if the information didn't actually exist. So the agent, or the AI agent in this case, didn't respond to a ticket because it didn't actually have the answer. And like everything, we want to create that knowledge, so we can either create an internal document or an external document so that the agent can handle that ticket next time.
Yep.
And lastly, if the issue is excluded by a rule because you told the agent that you didn't want it to handle it, it's an off-limits topic, you're not sure if the agent is ready to use that yet, but you're ready to revise the rule book. You can actually review the response and let it know if you want it to respond to that ticket next time by removing that rule, or continuing to have that rule and keep it as a handoff ticket until next time.
Yep, exactly right. So once we're through that low-hanging fruit, the tickets that it didn't even try to answer, we have it now involved in all the topics that we want to be. The next thing that we can do is just coach for that incremental, what is going to take it from good to great. So it's a little tricky to know exactly what should I be looking for, because these are all successful resolutions. Best thing to do is just carve out some time. Just like I'm sure you all do with your teams, you probably have some training, some checkups, some one-on-ones. You might take a sample size of tickets, review them, and just see this was good, but is there anything that I'd like you to adjust? So I have listed some common examples here of things that we might want to tweak, and actually tactically in the app, where can I go to make these types of changes? So number one thing that we'll see is the answer was perfect, but it just felt a little bit off-brand. Maybe it was correct, but it felt robotic, and we're a fun brand. I can go into the tone of voice settings and make sure it's not just answering questions, but it's also using the emojis that you like. It's using wording that's on brand for you. Really, a good customer experience is not enough for it to just be accurate. It really needs to feel like an extension of your voice. Another common thing that we'll see is when you're making shopping assistant recommendations, it's kind of going to feel out, should I be asking a lot of questions, doing a really deep discovery? Should I make recommendations right away? There's not really a one-size-fits-all. It's going to have a lot to do with the product you sell and the complexity of that product. So you can imagine if you sell something that's really high ticket, it takes a lot of consideration before you purchase it. You probably wouldn't want the agent to just recommend a product as soon as somebody says, hey, I'm shopping for my niece. You'd really want to dive in. What are their interests? Where do they live? What's the weather like there? If you found that it just said, hey, you're looking for your niece, here's a cool shirt, we can dial that back. That's why we have those slidings, because it isn't a one-size-fits-all. Another thing that we can adjust for is somebody is dragging on the conversation longer than it needs to be. So through guidance and through adding processes, a lot of times we're actually able to cut down on the amount of resolutions, or touch points, within a single resolution. So if you look at a damaged item complaint, somebody might say, hey, something arrived, it's damaged, am I good to return it? A agent without guidance might just look at the knowledge doc, say, yep, this looks good. Within 30 days, anything that's been damaged, you can return without issue. But then a human's going to have to jump in and say, wait, we need a photo. Can you let me know if this was under warranty? When did you buy it? Was it on sale? You know, we're asking more and more follow-up questions that we probably should have just done in the first place. And so if you have that checklist of information you'd like for these more nuanced circumstances, we can just add that in and make sure in the guidance that process is understood. As a result, it's going to be way less touch points, way better experience for your customer, and a quicker resolution time, which is something I think we all monitor pretty carefully.
So once your agent is doing well, it's time to maximize and grow its impact. That means expanding what it can do, where it works, and how it helps your business. So we can think of that as like a promotion, maybe.
I'd say so.
So one of the first things you can do is start by enabling actions. So you can let your agent not just reply to tickets, but actually take action, like canceling a subscription, editing a shipping address, managing orders, actually doing something instead of just responding to the ticket. As confidence grows, you can also reduce the number of handover topics. So I mentioned this earlier. If AI agent can handle something more complex, we should let it. So free up your agents for higher value work.
Yep, exactly. And then if you have a special focus on driving sales as well, I think there's a lot of opportunity once you feel confident in how the AI is performing. Let's get it out there and drive the amount of opportunities it has. You can't really make a sale if you're not having chats. And so what are some options we have? If you've just been doing email, we can maybe expand that channel into chat. If you're on the website, but you're just waiting for people to come in and chat with you and ask for product recommendations, we're probably not capturing a lot of those people that are on the fence. So you can essentially have AI agent hang out of the store, wave people in, try to spark up the conversation, and be proactive. So earlier in the first presentation today, you would have seen our product leader, Max. He presented a few different options for how you can actually meet people where they are and try to spark that interest and drive that conversation. I think the best analogy I can think of is if you're in a shoe store and you walk right in and somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, can I help you? You kind of shoo them away. If you've been picking up the same shoe, walking away, going back, picking it up again, it's in your hands, you're looking at it, a good sales rep might come up and say, hey, do you want me to check in the back and see if we have this in your size? You know, it's taking context into account. It's not being pushy, it's being timely. And that conversation might be just what it needs to drive that sale. So expanding the scope, again, this is not an early stage thing, we understand that, but as soon as you've gotten to the point where you're comfortable in how it's performing, we really want to look for ways where that can be more impactful for your business, and proactivity is absolutely top of the pile. Your question?
So we get that on.
Sorry?
You would bet
On a specific page, have a message that's tailored? Yes, absolutely. So we can let AI do the work. We can let it choose, hey, we've seen a lot of questions are coming up when you're on this area of the website. And so factoring that in, I'm going to launch a proactive message here because it's a high likelihood that, you know, this is a tricky section. Or we can be a little bit more programmatic and say, I'd like to say on this current URL, always send this message. So let AI do it, or if you have a really good use case, be programmatic. Yep. And that's actually a perfect time to segue. We wanted to save plenty of time here because we understand a lot of you in the room are halfway through an implementation, have already implemented, are looking for ways to improve AI. Nicole and I do this all day, every day. And so we want to make sure anybody who has had questions gets those addressed in the time that we have. And we also want to get you out a little bit early to queue up for cocktails and food if you're sticking around. So thank you all.
Any questions? Yes.
Yeah.
So what did
Absolutely. Good call. Yeah.
so look by it, so and then speaking to it.
Testing. I asked this in the last session too, but is there any way to work it into like the pop-up on the website, or no?
The chat pop-up?
No, like the email capture pop-up. I'm sorry, your sign-up form to make that more engaging.
So at this time, we can't integrate into an existing pop-up provider if you're using like a Klaviyo, for example. However, we can embed email capture forms into our own pop-ups. And because that information is being passed back to the Shopify customer profile, as long as you're integrated with Klaviyo, you can add that to a list through a flow. And so you could say on your homepage, here's a chat, here's a pop-up. The benefit of doing it with Gorgias is that it would be conversational. If you're using Klaviyo, it's probably just static. You can get the email, but you can't follow up from there.
Yeah,
Right.
that's my point. So it would offer the discount and invite them into a conversation on your pop-up.
Correct. But you're not losing out on adding that person's email and contact information to your list because that's happening by populating that new information to the Shopify profile.
No, I haven't tested this yet, but just curious if you guys have found, because we started with the one-touch tickets and got a few that we're super confident in. And so we started looking at some of the complex tickets and just using it at least to triage, like ask those first few questions and then hand it off. But one little nuance was when you're getting that photo for damage, have you guys seen that it works where it can detect if there's a photo attached on the ticket, if you give it that specific guidance, and then, not ask that question when it goes through the checklist, can it detect that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I'd actually have to get back to you on that. I know that the image detection is brand new, and to be clear, that's for the Shopify catalog. On the roadmap, absolutely is context-aware to read images that are being exchanged back and forth between agent and customer in the chat. But I don't want to misspeak and say that's out yet just because the Shopify catalog is, but I do know it's planned for this quarter. Nicole, do you know?
Yes, I'm like, yes, it's coming very soon, like end of the quarter. Yeah.
We're actually working on
Yeah.
Yeah.
right now.
Amazing.
More question? Yeah.
You.
Hi there. Can you set up a trigger based on time spent on a certain page?
You can. So, by the way, every Gorgias account comes with campaigns that you can turn on that can be programmed off of time spent on the URL and which URL you're on. So absolutely you can do that. I think one of the benefits of some of these features we've been previewing and are rolling out progressively is we're trying to avoid you having to come in and maintain those and change those as your needs change. And we want to be reacting to what we're seeing on the website because we're tracking every visitor, where they're spending time, what questions they're asking on what page. If they're on a product page and then they go straight to the search bar and ask a question, we're capturing that. And over time, that's going to shape on this URL after 10 seconds. This is the info people want. We will just go ahead and send that out, and you don't have to keep that up to date. If you're promoting a product and you've been using campaigns previously, it works fantastic, but nobody likes checking in every week and making sure that's still in stock and switching it out. So putting that on autopilot, but keeping that core benefit is something we're really, really excited to bring to everybody here.
Nice. And one more is, what about based on the customer? Like LTV or first-time customer?
Yeah, so context aware. You cannot necessarily control it and say, if it's a first-time buyer, do this. If it's a person with $700 in their cart or 500 or less, this is how I'd like you to trigger the message. But it is factoring in what somebody has purchased before if we can match that Shopify profile. If we can't match the profile and we don't have previous purchasing history, loyalty points, etc., we still know everything they're doing on the session. And so where they've been, where they're at currently, if there's anything in their cart and how much, can still impact the end message that they're receiving. And so if somebody, just to make this a real example, has $1,000 in their cart and they're on the cart page, the message they receive is going to be very different from somebody who is a first-time visitor and just on your homepage. It's going to be much more educational. $1,000 on cart, prompting a message. It's like, hey, any last-minute questions? Let's jump in there and make that sale, where we're probably just being informational when they're early in their journey.
Nice. Thank you.
So I got one thing.
Okay.
To the best.
Okay, I think that's fine.
And can you all hear okay without the mic, or is it quiet?
No, it's in my.
We've been sharing one.
Question about the coaching part of it. So we've been using Gorgias for quite a few years already, and when we coach, do we have capability to actually look up the database of all the tickets, then kind of come up with a pattern and get like a groundwork of when we set up the agent? Because I feel like the database is such a powerful tool and it's very catered to your brand and policy and everything. So does this AI agent leverage that database of all the tickets that we had before?
No, I don't think it does.
So for the coaching,
Yeah.
not necessarily. So you still have to make the manual changes you'd like to see. However, we do have something coming. I don't know if you were in the roadmap presentation, but it's voice of the customer. And so what we're trying to do is surface these suggestions in a way that's easier for you, because you're right, we have all this powerful information. We've had every conversation you've ever had. We should be making that more valuable information for you. And so what this could look like is if you have had 30, let's say 1,000 tickets in the last month, and we realize that 500 of them are very, very similar, but there's no knowledge article about this yet. There's no guidance about this yet. We can suggest, based on how humans have been answering, this looks like it'd be a good article for you. And do you want to basically accept it or tweak it or edit it? So we're trying to make this coaching a little bit more automated since we have that data. So that's another exciting thing in the works. For now, what I would recommend is go ahead and look at your intent statistics. So find out, what are the topics where I'm not automating as well as I'd like to be, and use that as the starting point. So if you know that 90% of return questions are automated, probably not too much more to do there. But if you find that on product questions, you're automating at 20%, I would bet you that there's a lack of detail out there in the Help Center, maybe even in the Shopify page that tells us what these products do and how they're differentiated. And so I would look at how it's answering, see why it's handing over the tickets, and then that's where I would focus my efforts initially until that 20% automation rate on product becomes 80%, and I can move on to the next high priority topic. And if you haven't had a call with somebody that can help guide you through this, let's set that up. Absolutely.
I'm here, right?
Do you guys have a recommended loyalty partner? Just because my biggest problem with loyalty programs and point systems and all that is nobody cares until they're going to make a purchase. I always use I don't care about my coffee shop points until I'm making my next coffee, and they're like, oh, you have points at the register, and then I'm like, oh, it's dope. So I keep going back to that coffee shop. So is there a way to work that point reminder into the conversation, or is there a loyalty partner that you recommend for this?
Okay.
So I think if you're going to choose a loyalty partner, we have multiple that we work with that we would say is preferred. I wouldn't want to make a suggestion about this one's better than another because they have different strengths and weaknesses. Definitely could share a couple that you'd want to check out. In terms of how it's going to play into AI agents, that's part of the context awareness piece because, well, let me preface this. As long as your loyalty program integrates with Shopify and we can recognize that person as that Shopify profile, loyalty is part of that. That is just extra context we can take in. So if we know you are 19-time coffee buyer of the month and you're back on our website, we know that. It's not direct from Shopify, but as long as it's integrated, that is context we can factor into the conversation dynamically. In terms of which program you should use,
I just need to have that. Yeah.
we could answer those types of questions, but it depends on the integration again. If we can actually fetch that via API and use it in the response, or if it's just yes, this is the points tier, and that's going to impact how we're handling the conversation.
I was going to say, why don't we chat after and we can we'll talk about a few. Yeah, I'd like to get a little bit more information about your business and stuff, but we do have a few partners and maybe we'll set you up with Richard and, go ahead.
So we actually have a dedicated resource, someone on the team that handles questions like this, requests like this. So if you email us at support@gorgias.com, or if you have an assigned CSM, you can reach out to them with this question. We review your tech stack, what are you using right now? You can also share what your priorities are, the use case that you shared with us, and then we can be more granular with the recommendations. Yeah. And we can make introductions with promotions that are available through the partnerships that we have.
Thanks, Michaela.
Any other questions? You have the experts in the room.
Oh.
My last company was ag tech selling to farmers through dealers, so this is all totally new to me. I don't want to learn all this. Is there companies that do this as a service to get you all set up and going?
We absolutely have partners that can help you set up different areas of the tech stack. I would say you might not really need to for AI agent. I think again, what we really wanted to hammer home today is it's not this mystical setup that's super technical just because AI is powering it. It's really not much different than making sure the info you have on file, which I'm sure you have FAQs, I'm sure you have product details. We just need that to be up to date and accurate so that we can reference it, and when those questions come in, leverage those in our answers. And then in terms of getting guidance and making it adjust and nailing down the tone of voice in the way that you want, you're not opening up anything in the back end and typing in a line of code. In human plain text, simple English, you're saying, hey, be a little bit less robotic, be a little bit smoother, be friendlier, use emojis, don't use emojis, just like you give instructions to anybody over text, essentially. So yes, absolutely. We have providers that can help set up complicated things. I don't think this setup should be one of those things. So maybe try to get it done through us first. But of course, yeah, we're happy to set you up with an agency if needed for that.